Hi, my name is Robin, and welcome to English Grammar Now. Today, we're going to talk about things you can't count. This is a grammar category called non-count nouns. In our previous episode, we talked about the plural forms of nouns, and we learned that some nouns have unusual plural forms, such as child becoming children. Scissors is always plural, and we say one sheep, two sheep with no change. But what about the nouns in this sentence? I'll make some rice and meat. We can have coffee and bread later. Do you think those are singular or plural? We're going to get to that sentence later. First, we have to know the difference between count nouns and non-count nouns. Nouns that are called count nouns are things that we can count. We can separate them into different pieces and count them. For example, we could say 1, 2 scissors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 toys. 3 cups. You can see that all of these nouns are in the plural form, with an S at the end. The other category is called non-count nouns. Sometimes these are abstract, meaning it's not possible to touch them. Or they might be masses of things that cannot be counted. These kinds of nouns don't have a plural form. Some examples might be homework, hair, education. We don't have plural forms if we're talking about these as concepts. There are some basic groups of nouns that are often non-count. Let's go through them. First of all, as we said, abstract things. Things that we can talk about, but we can't really touch them. Things like bravery, honesty, information, or intelligence. There's no plural form of these, and we can't count them. We also can't count activities or games, like homework, reading, sleeping, football. Some kinds of food are non-count, like bread, butter, cheese, fish, milk. Those were in our example sentence at the beginning. We also can't count gases or liquids. So air, oxygen, smoke, coffee, wine, petrol. None of these can be counted. Materials like chalk, cloth, concrete, lumber, wood, and metal also can't be counted. We cannot count things that are names of groups, that are categories, such as clothing. There's many different things in that category, but we can't count the noun clothing. Same with furniture, luggage, mail, money. Natural processes, things that you might hear about in science class, also can't be counted. Gravity, humidity, rain, sunshine, thunder. Lastly, anything that's in very, very tiny pieces are non-count, such as dust, flour, rice, salt, and sugar. That's a lot of categories. Let's take a look at some more examples. Here's something for you to try. These nouns can be separated into two categories, count nouns and non-count nouns. If it helps, you could try adding a number in front of this noun to see if it sounds right. Go ahead, give it a try. Here's how we would separate those nouns into count and non-count categories. All of the count nouns are dollar, earrings, broom, teacher, language, cup. You could put a number in front of these. You could say $5, 2 earrings, 6 brooms, 1 teacher, 4 languages, 2 cups. The non-count nouns are money, jewelry, housework, English, sugar, and tea. So if you notice, all of the count nouns have singular or plural forms. They would look like this. Some of them are regular spelling, some of them have added letters, but they have both a singular and a plural form. The non-count nouns don't have that. When we're using non-count nouns, there are some words that we can't use together with them. Here's a comparison side by side. You can use numbers with count nouns, like 5 books, but you can't use numbers with non-count nouns. You can say many for count nouns, like many houses, but for a non-count noun, you'll say much, like too much paper. You can say a lot of for both kinds, a lot of computers, a lot of water. You can say a few for count nouns, but for non-count nouns, we say a little. A few plants, a little homework. Some and no can be used for both categories. Some people, some information. No chairs, no research. Words like every and each are only for count nouns. Every student, each classroom. We cannot use these for non-count nouns. Lastly, we can use all for both kinds of nouns. All fathers, all furniture. Now, there is a way to count a non-count noun, but we have to add some extra words in. We can add in a way of measuring how much of that non-count noun. For example, you could measure rice by saying 3 bowls of rice, 100 grams of rice, or 1 grain of rice. Those are all ways that you could measure rice. You could measure coffee by saying a cup of coffee, a bag of coffee, a drop of coffee. You could measure chocolate by saying a bar of chocolate or a piece of chocolate. You could also measure by saying 1 day of sunshine or a game of tennis. All of these nouns are non-count, but we can describe how much we have or want. There are a couple of exceptions for non-count nouns. Some nouns could be used in 2 ways, like the noun tea. We would normally say, I'd like a cup of tea if you don't mind. That means I would like a cup of one kind of tea, whichever kind is available. But if you're talking about many different kinds of tea, you could use it in a plural form. You could say, where do you buy all these teas? You're meaning many different kinds of tea. We also frequently say things like a cup of, a bottle of, a glass of. So in informal speech, we might not include that measurement. If the person we're talking to understands we only want a cup, we might not use those words. We might just say, I'd like a tea if you don't mind. Get me a coffee when you go out. Because the person we're talking to knows what we want. Here's an activity for you to try. We can use many for a count noun and much for a non-count noun. So for each of these sentences, look at the noun that comes after the blank and decide if it needs many for a count noun or much for a non-count noun. Go ahead, give it a try. Here's the answers for those blanks. For number 1, are there many students in your class? Number 2, how much sugar should I buy? Number 3, there is too much garbage in the yard. Number 4. We have too many shoes by the door. Number 5. Did you get much information at the meeting? And number 6. How much money do we need to bring? You can see that nouns that are plural, like students and shoes, are obviously count nouns. So that helps you make your decision. Here's a conversation to show how count nouns and non-count nouns work in a conversation. Excuse me, I'm looking for a present for my sister. Is there anything you recommend? Does she like coffee? You could give her a bag of coffee. She doesn't drink coffee. Do you have tea? We have 5 kinds of tea, and a lot of mugs you could give as well. Maybe you'd like to see some jars of jam that we sell. Or if you don't have much time, you could get a gift card. Yes, thanks. That sounds like a great idea. Here's some of the different kinds of nouns highlighted. Remember that a can only be used with a singular noun. So we already know that you cannot use a or an with a non-count noun. There's also a few different ways to measure different non-count nouns in this conversation, like a bag of, 5 kinds of, a lot of, some jars of. Thank you for studying with me about the difference between count and non-count nouns. I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!